Hello, inmates, and welcome to the cellblock Scorch Week 234A. This is Bones, and I'm recording as the winner of this week's Scorch. Man, it's way longer between Scorches if you're only in the second half. I feel like I haven't read one of my pieces to y'all in forever. This week's prompt was given by Matches, and it was... I'm not quite sure what I was expecting, but I certainly wasn't expecting a whale to be involved. I was excited about this prompt because it felt like the perfect opportunity to write about a cast of characters that had been pinging around my head for a while, but I hadn't found the impetus to write for, because this is the first time I wrote for them for the Scorch. I think it does a fine job of not assuming you know things already, so I think I'll just jump in here and then explain a bit more after I read it. So without further ado, the name of this Scorch is A Respectable Job. Are you finally gonna tell me what you do for a living? Tristan tapped his spoon lightly on the edge of his bowl of soup, a nervous tick that he didn't bother suppressing around Cowrie. Which was weird, he reflected distantly. That was something he'd noticed about himself over the last few weeks. He didn't remember who he was before. Facts he'd been told, of course, his name, his job, but nothing he remembered for himself. But he must have been very reserved, secretive, even. No one he'd spoken to had been aware he was the owner of the most controversial crime blog in the city. Actually, the fact that he ran a crime blog, which didn't focus on crimes as much as kind of weird events that he had weaved into a tapestry of drama and intrigue, all focused around a particular unnamed villain, pulling all the strings. Yeah, he'd already known he was a bit like that. Anyway, back to the nervous tick thing. Tristan tapped on things when he was nervous. But for some reason, he always stopped when anyone was around. Anyone at all, as if even when he didn't remember anything, he suspected everyone. It wasn't a great feeling. What kind of person had he been? But, just like when he had seen Cowrie the first time and she had felt like a breath of fresh air, the only thing he felt like he recognized, the only one who felt trustworthy. For some reason, he didn't automatically suppress his tics around her. Cowrie raised one immaculate eyebrow at the question, giving him that familiar look. The one that would have been pitying if she didn't respect him so much. Some kind of grim amusement. And that was the catch, wasn't it? Because even though she instinctively felt like the most trustworthy person to him, he didn't actually know anything about her because she wouldn't tell him. And even though she clearly knew more about him than he had figured out, more about them, perhaps, about how he had even come to know someone so powerful, she wouldn't tell him anything about that either. Yeah, I know. I'll stop. He waved a dismissive hand. To be honest, it was getting tiresome, but it wasn't like he had any other friends to turn to if he pissed her off. You know, Cowrie hedged, and that drew his attention immediately. She was flicking her straw around her drink in a way that probably should have looked like she was playing, but it felt predatory somehow. Maybe I won't tell you, but I suppose I could give you a tour. Tristan had never heard a better suggestion in his life. Maybe Tristan had never heard a worse suggestion. Miss, you can't be serious. The doorman had said when Cowrie approached with Tristan in tow, looking at him with intense distrust. Can't I? Cowrie asked with deceptive mildness, and the doorman dropped into a low bow immediately, gesturing them into the fancy reception chamber with nary another word. Everyone else he saw, from those loitering around reading or chatting to workers in the middle of tasks, stopped to look at him like he was going to be the cause of some great calamity. There was hostility, fear, confusion, all of which they covered up and ignored whenever Cowrie's eyes cut to them. "This isn't your house, is it?" Tristan asked, scurrying on behind the powerful click of her heels as she strode down the hall. "I have a room here," she said, as straightforward as she ever got. He hummed like that was a reasonable response, but forewent prodding further in favor of scanning the place. There were a lot of people here, and about half of them seemed to just be loitering around. But something told him they were keeping watch and putting on some kind of front. To what? He had no idea. "Come this way. I have a feeling you'll like this room," she led on, and two people who had previously been chatting suddenly scrambled to open two enormous doors, back set in rigid bows as she passed through. As far as Tristan had seen, she hadn't so much as glanced at them, much less ordered them in some way before they had moved to open the doors. Whoever Cowrie was, she was definitely in charge here. This line of thought was derailed when he noticed the contents of the room she had led him into. The whole large room glowed with strange blue light, but the words died in Tristan's throat as he began to ask about it. The walls were made of glass, full to the brim with water, and the lights shining through them caused the strange color. And there were whales. There were other things too, a lot of tanks with different animals in them, but the whales, being the largest, were the most striking. Granted, there wasn't a blue whale or anything, but a vaquita, a beluga, even a pygmy killer whale. "Is this legal?" Tristan frowned, eyes sliding between the enormous tanks of water. "Tristan," Cowrie waved off, "how on earth would I have this set up illegally?" That was not a no. He decided not to press any further. Cowrie stood still as a statue near the door, back to the wall, and watched as Tristan wandered around looking at the creatures in the room. It baffled him how she could do that in those enormous heels without so much as shifting to redistribute her weight. He couldn't stand heels half that tall for any extended period. "So," Cowrie prompted at her normal volume, although it somehow pierced the whole room, and Tristan turned to her immediately. "Is this what you expected?" "I had no idea what to expect," he frowned. "But I definitely didn't expect whales to be involved." She looked smug, like his being taken off guard was some kind of win for her. He couldn't imagine why, since, to his short recollection, that was his constant state of being, especially next to Cowrie. "You know, you just showed me an improbable room with rare animals. You didn't actually tell me what you do for work." "Oh, you noticed?" Cowrie chuckled, her laughter a soft hiss through her teeth. "It's getting late, Tristan. You should go home. Unless you want to spend the night here." Tristan paused a moment, trying to discern if that was a suggestion, an invitation, or a threat. Cowrie huffed out another laugh and began to walk out without waiting for him to finish his contemplation, and he quickly lurched to follow her. No, it's fine, I'll be going home." Tristan rushed out after her. He still didn't know how to interpret the question exactly, but something told him he would regret it in any case. Alright, so that was it. I hope you enjoy my sad man Tristan and his amnesia. This story is actually what inspired my prompt for week 228A, which was, "I just feel like I can trust you," and then in parentheses, "they are wrong." Because I'm sure you could guess, given that Tristan is a paranoid crime blogger and his one friend refuses to reveal anything about herself, but she is actually the nexus of evil that is plaguing the city that he's been trying to expose. The thing is that before he got amnesia, she was mostly just, playing, but also was really impressed by his investigative skills, and she was trying to hire him. But Tristan is many things, and able to be bought off is actually not one of them. So she's charming and funny and rich and trying to hire him, and even though he kept refusing and trying to bring her down, they developed a bit of a rapport. And then he was somewhere he didn't belong, and one of her mooks bashed his head in and delivered him to the hospital. And then she hadn't intended for him to get amnesia, but he did. And when he didn't show up to bother her for like a week, she got worried and showed up at the hospital, and he was just so relieved to see someone that he felt like he recognized that she didn't have the heart to be like, wait, we're not friends. And also she is pretty amoral, so she was like, fantastic. Maybe I can get him to work for me while he has no idea. But the one holdover from before is that he just knee-jerk refuses to work with her no matter what. So yeah, Tristan has no idea that his one friend is the person he's been trying to expose as evil for years, and Kaori feels kind of bad about it, but not bad enough because she is base evil. Anyway, the universe is called Amnesiac Casanova on the Patreon, which is actually an inside joke from playing the game Cinderella Phenomenon, because it was our nickname for one of the routes who was an amnesiac. The game is free, and it has an interesting twist on fairy tales premise, so if you like otome games, visual novels, and fairy tales, I would recommend looking into it. Anyway, Amnesiac Casanova, and this is the first one of the universe, but the next one is the winner of week 264A, so you will be hearing more of them on the podcast. Let's see. In other projects, the Westward Eye podcast I tried out for has started airing. It's a queer Western horror. I'm in episode 7, and the prologue is out now. I think it's going to be dropping an episode per month, so it'll be a while before I show up, but it's all really cool. And definitely very disturbing, so if you don't like body horror, then it might not be for you. But still, I think episode 7 is the least horrifying, so this suggestion's for you, Mom. If you want to go listen to my character being really blasé about trauma TM, then you could just go listen to that one. But really, I do recommend the whole thing if you are into horror and body horror specifically. Also, several cast members drew art for the episodes, and I was in charge of the art for episode 3, so the art they'll be posting on the Westward Eye Instagram for 3 was actually drawn by me. Yay! Let's see. The prompt I gave for next week is, turns out chaos is just a bunch of feathers. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you'll think about checking out our Patreon. You can join as a free member to show your support, as well as get the transcripts for our episodes and some other extras, and it will let us know that you love us without having to spend any money. Or if you're interested in our embers, which are fantastic if I do say so myself, you can join our spark level for $5 a month. Or you could just pay $5 once and read everything. No one will begrudge you that. I have a small public service announcement on that. If you have an Apple device, make sure that you sign up for any Patreon things online instead of through the App Store, because Apple is about to start charging you extra if you use through the store. They also give us a little extra to try to bribe us into keeping quiet about it, but we have integrity and love for our fellow humans, and 20 cents isn't quite enough to overcome that, so here's your warning. For those who are already our Sparks, you should be fine. It'll only affect new members. Yeah, so that's our PSA for today. You're all fantastic. Thanks again for listening, and keep those fires burning. The Cellblock Scorch is a production of Stellacore, an independent group of nerds sharing their obsessions with the world. We can be reached at thestellacore@gmail.com, through comments on your podcast platform of choice, our Instagram, Stella_core, and at our YouTube, also called Stellacore. Follow Cellblock Scorch Podcast on Instagram, or the Cellblock Scorch on Tumblr to see the prompt the day before the episode drops and a quote from each Scorch the day after, with flavor commentary from Red, our social media manager. Feel free to check out our other productions on our YouTube channel or our cosplays on Instagram. If you would like to support our creative endeavors, you can give a one-time tip to the Ko-Fi of the writer of your favorite Scorches, or check out our Patreon, linked in the show notes. There, you can access the Scorches and episode transcripts for free, or sign up for Spark level support for $5 a month to gain access to our embers as well.